Hey guys, Spirit of the Law here. In this video, we're going to be taking a close look at a very interesting unique unit, the Janissary. They've enjoyed a reputation as a great Castle Age unique unit, with tons of firepower while requiring very few upgrades. Of course, they recently had their range in Castle Age reduced from 8 to 7, making this a very topical topic, and a good time to deep dive the unit and see where it stands. The Hand Cannoneer is by far the most natural comparison in the late game, and we will look at the Janissary as an alternative to hand cannons in depth, though I think we should start things off instead by looking at what Janissaries have to offer in Castle Age. Admittedly, it almost feels like cheating to have a gunpowder unit in Age early, even before researching chemistry, and at a glance their attack especially stands out at 17 compared to the Crossbow 7. Now, while their attack looks great on paper, it's slightly misleading, as even before thumbring, they take about 70% longer to reload than a crossbow, and they have just 50% accuracy compared to the crossbow's 85%. Another important consideration is they're fairly expensive for a ranged unit, at 60 food and 55 gold compared to the crossbow's 70 total resource cost. Digging deeper into their firepower, at point-blank range, when all of their shots are landing, they end up doing surprisingly only a little more damage output than a crossbow with thumbring, ending up a bit behind the Conquistador in the battle for gunpowder supremacy. If anything, this is even overselling the Janissary as well, as it has the lowest accuracy out of this group, and at a distance, they pretty clearly lag the other two in damage. That said, the advantage of high attack is they're less impacted by enemy pierce armor than the crossbow. Even with a very modest 3 enemy pierce armor, the Janissary is already better at a distance. This is the main advantage of gunpowder units, and within reason, the higher the pierce armor, the better a gunpowder unit should look relative to an archer, with the biggest gap coming against units with 6 or 7 pierce armor, like an elite skirmisher. Now, as for a few hidden things, note that Janissaries are not affected by thumbring, ballistics, or archer attack upgrades, and are only improved in Castle Age with archer armor. While that might sound like they're missing out on something, actually this should be seen instead as a significant cost savings. Fully upgrading crossbows takes over 2100 resources worth of techs between the blacksmith, university, and archery range, on top of all of the research time as well, while Janissaries after building a castle just have to pick up armor. And frankly, armor isn't even that critical in many cases and can be delayed if you're short on food. They also have a pretty quick 17-second creation time, compared to crossbows at 27 and skirmishers at 22, which to some extent makes up for the castle requirement. Next, in terms of bonus damage, their only attack bonus is +2 against rams, meaning they do 2 instead of the expected 1 damage. But on the flip side, they take extra damage from anything anti-archer, anti-gunpowder, or the samurai. Now, just quickly, I want to address the recent impact of their decreased range. Previously, Janissaries in Castle Age had a nearly unmatched 8 range, whereas now they have just 7, same as a crossbow, elite skirmisher, mangonel, or scorpion. All of these are significant threats to your Janissaries. And don't forget the town center, cavalry archer, and elephant archer, which were previously outranged by 2 and are now outranged by just 1. This was a significant nerf and means the Castle Age Janissary is now not as good as its reputation would suggest. For example, without micro, Janissaries are pretty easily beaten by crossbows with equal resources, whereas previously by outranging them, you could probably make it close with micro. Even with equal numbers, it's a basically balanced fight, despite the Janissary costing over 60% more in total resources. The point is, Janissaries in a shootout just don't perform that well against archers in general, now that they're limited to having the same range. Let's not give up on them quite yet though, and let's see how they do against some other units. Right away, there's a potential misconception in thinking that since the Hand Cannoneer is anti-infantry, the Janissary will be equally good in that role as well. As it turns out though, they don't have any bonus damage against infantry, and while their high attack seems promising, doing roughly double the damage per attack as a crossbow, the issue comes down to accuracy. In fact, a single Janissary can't reliably beat a pikeman any faster than a crossbow because it misses nearly half the time at long range. Even close up though, with balanced resources, crossbows still perform better despite being the softer unit. Right away, this reinforces that Janissaries are not especially anti-infantry, and the crossbow with its +3 versus spear units and far less wasted overkill damage is the clear choice here. That maybe shouldn't be unexpected though, as remember the point of gunpowder is to overwhelm high armor targets, and not to deal with large numbers of low HP units, unless you're the organ gun, but that's a different story altogether. For Janissaries against pikemen, even with micro, you're just losing so much of your attack to overkill and missed shots that it ends up being a more prolonged fight than you might expect. So if they aren't that impressive against infantry, then what about against cavalry? Well, here things start looking up, as remember 3 pierce armor was the point that Janissaries start to outshine crossbows, and knights have 4 pierce armor with all upgrades. Again, accuracy is the major concern though, and here you can see at long range, a single Janissary is only about as effective as a crossbowman at beating a knight, emphasizing that high attack isn't everything. That said, up close where accuracy goes to nearly 100%, with balanced resources Janissaries outperform crossbows, though neither appears particularly impressive against knights without micro. Instead, where Janissaries start to stand out is when we use an equal number of Janissaries and crossbows, here with double the knight starting numbers. In this case, Janissaries can win, whereas crossbows lose, assuming we aren't using micro. The main takeaway is value-wise, the Janissary isn't giving a tremendous amount of firepower compared to the crossbow, even against a unit as heavily armored as a knight. But if you can funnel these saved resources from needing fewer upgrades into massing even a moderately sized group of Janissaries, they do start to earn the reputation. Against knights, ideally, you really want to get to that 10 or 12 critical mass, where you can start to micro and one-shot them, performing similar to a much larger ball of crossbows. Of course, where they should do their best is against units with high pierce armor, though unfortunately a lot of those are still counters, either value-wise or because they excel against groups of low HP units, which would include Janissaries. Mangonels and Scorpions, for example, are a threat to a group of Janissaries, and even elite skirmishers are cost-effective. Against skirmishers specifically, you're doing more than 3 times the damage over time that a similar sized group of crossbows would do. So while you shouldn't purposefully go out of your way to fight skirmishers because of their bonus damage, that's probably the matchup you'll notice the Janissaries' advantages most dramatically. So far, this has all just been for Castle Age though, where their biggest advantages have been against high armor targets and their relatively cheap tech switch. But now let's move on to the Imperial Age. First off, Turks don't have Arbalester, so at this point the most natural comparison switches to the Hand Cannoneer, which remember Turks already have a few bonuses to enhance. Right away, Janissaries are at a disadvantage, in that their Imperial Age upgrade costs roughly the same as 17 hand cannons, making the hand cannon feel like the Janissary of Imperial Age, and that it's ready without a lot of upgrades, much like the Janissary was in Castle Age. For that elite upgrade cost, you get 6 more HP, 5 more attack, the removal of frame delay, meaning they're incredibly responsive and clean to micro, +1 range, a hidden 15% accuracy boost, +1 melee armor, and your bonus against rams goes from 2 to 3. Side by side with Hand Cannoneers, the elite Janissary is 20 resources more expensive, and the two are actually quite similar at a glance, with the same HP and fire rate, and the Janissary having a bit more attack and range. Behind the scenes though, the Hand Cannoneer has a sneaky 75% accuracy and of course its signature +10 bonus against infantry. Remember, Turks get free chemistry, so Hand Cannoneer is easier to produce than usual. In fact, you get the sense power spikes into gunpowder units is kind of the Turks' whole deal. Of course, the easiest rule of thumb here is that the Hand Cannoneer is better against infantry, while the elite Janissary is more well-rounded against everything else. But let's put that comparison to the test. To start, against champions, the Hand Cannoneer defeats them 1 attack sooner, on top of having a bit more accuracy. Certainly, in terms of firepower, the Hand Cannoneer is better, but as it turns out, in close quarters fighting, the elite Janissary's extra HP and melee armor make up for its lower damage, leading to a very similar outcome when balancing resources. Usually, you'll want a meat shield in front of your gunpowder units, but in a pinch, the Janissary's toughness can clearly help them step up, and give something very comparable to a Hand Cannoneer in this particular matchup. Moving on, against halberdiers, it's fairly similar, where Hand Cannoneers take them out 1 attack sooner in 3 instead of 4 hits. This time though, it's a big enough advantage that even up close, the Hand Cannoneer comes out looking significantly better. So certainly as a unit to pair with Hussar if you're worried about halberdiers, the Hand Cannoneer makes a bit more sense. Another important case worth pointing out is the elite Huskarl, where the Hand Cannoneer's +10 versus infantry is naturally more impactful than the elite Janissary's +5 attack. Up close, it's a massive difference, and against a modest group of 8 Huskarls, which is admittedly probably fewer than you'll actually run into, in this case the Hand Cannoneers come away with a nice victory, while the elite Janissaries are quickly overwhelmed. Remember, Huskarls are also doing their own bonus damage against both of these units, as they are technically considered archers. Clearly though, the rule of picking Hand Cannoneers against infantry holds true so far, that is, except for one case. The Condottiero actually ignores the anti-infantry bonus of the Hand Cannoneer as part of its anti-gunpowder specialty. The Janissary doesn't rely on anti-infantry bonus damage though, so it's unaffected, and in fact takes them out 2 shots sooner. This translates into a pretty big advantage for Janissaries in practice, able to defeat small groups of Condottieri where a similar or larger group of Hand Cannoneers lose. It's a quirky example of where the rule of hand cannons against infantry breaks down, and Sicilian infantry is another case where ignoring some of the Hand Cannoneer's bonus makes the Janissary perform relatively better. But to be clear, as a general rule, Hand Cannoneers are the better choice against infantry. Getting away from infantry now though, it's pretty clear elite Janissaries are a considerably more versatile unit. Against paladins, for example, their extra 5 attack means they in fact do 50% more damage per shot. This is probably the best example of where mass Janissary can thrive when combined with a meat shield, as the paladin's high armor and HP means you're losing a lot less damage to overkill than you usually would. With the elite upgrade, Janissaries are also among the cleanest units to micro in the game, so this is exactly the kind of situation where they thrive. Similarly, they also hold up comparably well against skirmishers, again thanks to higher attack, beating them in 3 instead of 4 hits. In theory, skirmishers are still cost effective, but especially with the elite upgrade, Janissaries are going to have a lot more success there than, say, an Arbalester would. And of course, speaking of Arbalesters, technically they are a cost-effective counter to elite Janissaries, and this definitely isn't a fight to seek out against a good archer civ, but in a battle with equal sizes, the Janissary can come out on top, which again highlights its population efficiency and flexibility. So to give a few closing thoughts, as we've seen, Janissaries and Hand Cannoneers have some surface similarities, but do fundamentally different things, and certainly the Janissary isn't just a replacement for the Hand Cannoneer. Generally, you go with one or the other. A castle drop into Janissaries is a popular self-contained strategy, with the advantage that you have basically no upgrades needed, while even a group as small as 8 or 10 are going to be a threat to one-shot most enemies in Castle Age. By going with Janissaries, you're getting a flexible generalist unit that tends to hold up reasonably well to the traditional anti-archer counter units like skirmishers. In contrast, the Hand Cannoneer and a bombard cannon pairing is more associated with the classic fast Imperial. This way, you can skip the cost of a castle and benefit from the Turks getting chemistry instantly. And of course, with their bonus damage, they're obviously the better choice against infantry units as well, aside from the Condottiero. Really though, either works well with Turk cavalry, and especially Hussar, helping them deal with spear units while the Hussar deals with things like skirmishers and onagers. Bombard cannons also complement this role, focusing down onagers. Generally, the decision comes down to whether you want the anti-infantry bonus, or if you prefer the more population-efficient and flexible Janissary, which already does just fine against infantry in a pinch. I realize I fired a lot of information at you in this video, but hopefully it helps put the two units into a bit better perspective. That'll do it for this one. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.